Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Film Expert versus Film Noob. I'm Chewy.
And I'm Cat.
And this week's movie is Pig, directed by Michael Sarnoski.
If you have been liking our content so far, please like, comment, subscribe to our channel, and follow us in other platforms.
Yes, thank you. We'd really appreciate that. On with the show. Pig. Pig, yes. What is Pig? I'm glad you asked, my fellow co-host. Well, Pig is a film starring Nicolas Cage, and the synopsis reads, a truffle hunter who lives alone in the Oregonian wilderness must return to his past in Portland in search of his beloved foraging pig after she is kidnapped. And you read that and you kind of think, well, that seems like an oddly low-stakes sort of setup. I mean, I guess his pig was kidnapped, but I don't get it. What's the big deal? Well, let me tell you what the big deal is. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you a bit about my boy, Michael Sarnoski. I think he's interesting because I looked at what his credits were before this, because this is his film feature debut. But I saw he actually had TV credits, like as a director. He directed what I guess they look like some kind of basic cable show, whatever. One of them is called Olympia. And I wrote the description as Farm Girl Goes to University. I guess it's like a fish out of water show, whatever. So not very interesting. And then the other one is Fight Night Legacy, which is, I wrote, Boxer Can't Box No More. So I guess that show's about like a boxer who can't box anymore, and it's about him coping with finding his place in the world or whatever. So just kind of like weird, sappy, basic cable drama stuff. Which is really weird when you realize that he stopped working in TV in 2012, and then this movie comes out this year. It feels to me like he maybe spent that whole time working on this. This movie was written by Vanessa Block and Michael Sarnoski, so he's invested in the story as well. I feel like with the craft that's put into this film, it looks to me like maybe he's a guy who was stagnating in TV and was like, I need to take a break and I need to make my movie. I need to get my thing off the ground. And this is it. He finally did it with the help of Nicolas Cage, no less. He's one of the producers on this.
Most likely he had like gigs and he kept working for a little bit on small things, maybe not film related, and working on this film.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, whatever he did, it paid off. Because I'll spoil my recommendation early. I loved this movie. I absolutely loved it. I am stunned by so many things in this movie, least of which Nicolas Cage. I am so happy. Like, I am just thrilled that we have a new classic Nicolas Cage performance. Like the things that he won awards for back in the day, where you see this and you're like, man, this guy still got it. Like, he never lost it. I would always argue that Nicolas Cage was always good. People just kind of lost respect for him because he's a fearless actor and he'll do anything. And maybe, you know, he makes some flawed choices with his films. But everything he's in, I've always loved, you know? And whether it's he's going too far and overacting in something, or you watch this movie or something like Leaving Las Vegas and you're like, wow, I am just completely drawn in by this man's ability. He is truly an actor that will be remembered, I think, and I hope, for a really long time because of the work he puts into his craft.
Yeah, I know Nicolas Cage from his most amazing movie named National Treasure. That
Yes.
I watched like maybe 100 times when I was young. And I think I saw Ghost Rider like a little bit. And I just know that when I was watching National Treasure when I was little, I remember my dad and my sister liking Nicolas Cage. You know, it's kind of like they remember him as a good actor. So they're like, oh, he's so great. Like that was their comment.
What, you mean then or now?
When I was watching National Treasure.
Well, that's what I mean. That's kind of, I think, for a lot of people was the turning point. He started doing bigger movies, and then there was Ghost Rider. I think that lost a lot of people because that movie wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. And then he just kind of fell out of favor, I guess.
Yeah, so, but like, that's the thing is like, when I was young, I didn't knew who he was. I couldn't care less. It was more like, oh, I like this movie, right?
Yeah, you knew the guy because of the movie.
And then you hear people like my dad saying, oh, yeah, he's a good actor, right?
Yes.
So I just always assume he was a good actor. I don't know who put that idea in my head.
Well, I guess
just
your dad.
knew. Yeah, I guess my dad. Or people around me. Who knows? I don't remember. So I remember when he became a meme. And I assume it was because people were like so big fans, they turned him into a meme and they were obsessed over him,
Right,
you
they
know?
were just, getting a little eccentric.
Because, I didn't knew like what he was doing. I didn't knew anything about him. And later in my life, I found out that people actually were memeing him because they were making fun of him because they were like, I don't know, they were assuming that he's not a good actor.
Yeah.
Or they didn't like the movies he was in, kind of like what happened with Adam Sandler.
Well, what happened with Nicolas Cage's case is that there were just a stretch of movies from kind of the end of Ghost Rider up until maybe 2013 where almost every movie he was in was terrible. Like, notable ones are like Wicker Man, the whole pouring the bees into his thing. He's like, oh, not the bees, they're in my eyes. Like, people saw him more as like a mockery, and they kind of liked him for his overacting in what were bad movies, because he's overacting if it's a bad movie, but if it's a good movie, then they write the movie around that, right? Whereas, or they just direct him, we want you to freak out. Like, there was a movie I saw called Mandy in which they essentially told him, yeah, we want you to do a Nicolas Cage freak out. Like, and he's like, okay, I get it. Like, he's aware of what people perceive of him too.
Yeah, so, but in my head, he was always a good actor, right?
No,
because
unquestionably, he is a good actor.
Yeah. So I didn't care. I was kind of like, meh, and I moved on with my life. So when you told me we're watching Pig, and then you said it's with Nicolas Cage, I'm like, that was like so bizarre to hear. That Nicolas Cage is in a movie, because I'm like, no, he was an actor when I was young. He's not an actor now.
Because you don't hear about him much anymore.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio in another movie. Of course he is, but like, no, like Nicolas Cage. And I was like, oh, I remember he was good, but then the internet told me he was bad, or like he had bad roles, whatever it is. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess. And you're like, oh, it's a good movie, and I didn't imagine anything about the movie.
I honestly didn't either. I just had heard from various sources. I saw like channels on YouTube talking about it. I'm like, oh, well, it's worth talking about. It must be pretty good. And I saw on Rotten Tomatoes, it was like, in the high 90s. And I was like, well, yeah, why not check it out? And I mean, I typically like to go into movies not knowing anything anyways. So to me, it was just an easy choice. I like Nicolas Cage. Everyone's talking about the movie. It must be good.
Yeah.
And wow, I was not prepared for how emotionally devastating this movie ended up being.
Yes.
Like, truly emotionally devastating.
Yes.
So I'll give the spoiler warning from here on out. We can't talk about the film in any meaningful way without going into scenes and everything that happened. So I'll just say I highly recommend the film. What about you?
I love the film.
You love the film. So we both highly recommend the film. So please go see it.
Yeah, go watch it. Pause this. Go watch it. Come back.
So the first thing I guess I want to say is this is kind of a special episode too, because this is probably the only time where we had to actually step away from a movie. Every other episode we do, we watch the movie and we sit down and we record.
Yes.
This has really been the only one where we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, we can't talk about this right now. Like, this hit a raw nerve. There's like a lot of really emotional things in this movie, a lot of trauma between families and relationships and stuff like that. So we'll get into that as it comes, but I think we'll kind of start off by just kind of the intro and what our impressions were, because it kind of starts in this really slow way. The camera comes in, is showing the landscape. You see a little piggy walking around. It's a cute piggy.
It's the cutest piggy you'll ever see.
It's the cutest piggy. It's just kind of sneaking around, and lo and behold, it's with Nicolas Cage, and they're truffle hunting. And it's just kind of showing how they have a bond. The pig and him, they eat together, they sleep together. It's just kind of showing their routine. So by the end of this routine, all you're really left with is, okay, there's some guy in the wilderness and he's got a pig, whatever. And a guy comes who becomes our secondary character. His name is Amir, and he gets his contact with the real world. So just in that intro, we get a lot of stuff to think about. We're like, who is Nicolas Cage? Why is he in the wilderness? When he's talking to Amir, he's just like,
Not responding.
he doesn't talk.
Yeah.
He just kind of gestures and points, or
Here's your truffle. That's it. He doesn't even say. He just gives him the truffle.
he just kind of goes, "Ugh." He just grunts. He just literally grunts. So Nicolas Cage doesn't say anything for, this encounter with this guy.
Yeah, I want to say something. Like, this is the type of movie that the more you go, the more you know.
Yeah, it reveals itself. New information constantly. It pretty much, it starts and gives you a million questions. And then as it goes, it answers all those questions one by one until it gets to its conclusion.
And I think this is one of those movies that will answer all the questions in a way. And you will, although it is emotionally devastating, you will feel satisfied.
Yes, it is. Exactly. It answers everything it sets up. Everything has a payoff. All the emotional payoffs are there. So anyways, after this interaction with Amir, he goes away and we just hear a rustling in the night. A lot of ruckus, a lot of yee-hawing, a lot of hooping and hollering. A car drives in real quick and they break into the house. They smash our buddy Nicholas. His name is Robin in this movie. So they smack Robin on the head with a cast iron pan, knock him out, and they steal his pig. And that's it. He wakes up soaked in blood, his head scabbed to the ground almost. And he just looks around. He tries to whistle for his pig, and it's gone. So the music starts playing. It starts getting intense. Nicolas Cage is suiting up. He's getting his coat on. He, flips the cover off of the old truck. He gets the gas, and you're like, oh my God, that's it. He's going on a mission to save his pig. And the car gets out the driveway. It sounds like it's really old. It's been a while. Might maybe just make it to city. He makes the first left. It dies instantly. Before our hero can even leave his campsite, his wheels are dead. And we're kind of left thinking, well, what now? So then he's forced to walk to the nearest place with a telephone. So he walks to a diner, and he walks in and he asks for somebody. And you're like, oh, well, I guess he knows somebody at the diner. They're like, well, that person's been dead for 10 years. And he's just kind of like, the scene is really interesting because when he first tries to talk, he can't. He chokes on his words. He's like, I haven't talked to anybody in a long time. And they're just kind of like, okay, what's your deal, man? You just look like a dirty homeless person.
He does.
And he does. So yeah, he asked for this person. They've been dead 10 years. And so you're starting to get some perspective. You're like, okay, so I guess he's been in the wilderness for 10 years. And he asks to use the phone. Like, are you going to buy anything? He's like, no. So we then get the sense that he's a very grumpy man. So he calls up his buddy Amir, I guess, as his first point of contact. He's like, hey, do you know anything about this? My pig's been stolen. And he's like, oh, wow, you're my main supplier. I guess I'm going to try to get involved. Let's try to sort this out. So he's like, people, you must know who the suppliers are, whatever. So they go to this shitty little caravan camp, I guess. And there's some woman there. They go and talk to this woman. They kind of do the very hey, who are you? What's going on? It's like, hey, somebody stole his pig. And she goes ballistic. She's like, nobody messes with my suppliers, whatever, yada, yada. It's like, oh, cool. Some justice is about to be done. And then they follow up on this. They figure out, oh, it's these two disgusting hicks.
Drug addicts.
These drug addicts. They don't have the pig. They already got rid of it. They don't even know. They're like, I don't know, some random guy we saw. We don't know. They're completely useless. So there's another dead end. So again, another false start. So we're like, well, what the hell do we do now? So he says, you're taking me to the city. He's like, okay, man, like, look, I helped you out. I'm not taking you to the city. Like, why would I do that?
I'll just get you another pig.
I'll just get you another pig. He's like, no, that's not what this is about. You can't just get me another pig. And he's just like, who cares? Like, everyone's always kind of like pressing that. Why the fuck do you care? I mean, it's obvious why he cares, but they're all just so in disbelief that he would care about this animal. So he's like, you're taking me to the city. You're doing it. And he's just humming. He's like, no, I don't want to. And so Nicolas Cage intimidates him essentially to take him to the city. And he convinces him to do it. So that's when our movie truly begins proper. After 2 false starts, we are given a goal. We're going to the city. It's Portland is the city. And they are going to find that pig. Essentially, we kind of just get led on this odyssey for a little bit through the city where he like meets a guy, that connection fizzles out. It's like essentially the movie is trying to keep setting up these really kind of cool revenge stakes. Like he's this really cool, quiet, badass guy. But it's like, okay, well, that doesn't work. He's got to start talking to people. Okay, well, that doesn't work. He's got to start asking for favors. It's like the movie's really interesting because when they kind of reveal itself to you, and when we get to that, we'll touch about it, but the movie's like a reverse movie in which it has this trajectory that it essentially forces the character to open up more as it goes on instead of close down. Because in a revenge movie, you would assume they lose everything and they go on this mission for, justice. So this movie sets off like that. Okay, he's going to get justice for a stolen pig. But they just keep putting barriers in front of you, and every barrier is not overcome with some awesome macho fight scene or, a cool badass gunfight. It's the character is forced to open up and share himself with more people and become personable again.
Actually, I think differently. I think that it's both. It is about a lot about power and a lot about opening up.
Yes.
So it's a lot because like you're saying nothing like macho happens, but like no, I saw it every single scene in which a person first declined helping him. He made a power move and he won.
Okay, well, I think you're misunderstanding me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are no action scenes.
Oh.
They've replaced the gunfights with talking and opening up.
Okay.
That's what's incredible about the movie, is that they lead you in by making you go, okay, revenge movie. And they go, no, gunfights don't solve problems. Opening up does. And it's so, like, that's such a profound message.
Yes.
And the movie just follows that to its logical conclusion. So, for instance, we mentioned, you're talking about a power struggle. The first guy he goes to see in the city, I don't know, he's some guy who essentially plainly calls out to Amir. He's like, you don't even know who this guy is. This is the first time that he really questions Amir to ask if he even knows who Robin is, like truly. And so that's when Amir kind of plays what is the audience surrogate for a while, where he's the person who keeps questioning, wait, who are you? And he always presses the issue for the audience, essentially. So through Amir, we find out more about Robin. So that deal fizzles out, and he just kind of wanders through the city. He's not really telling us anything. So Amir, like I was saying, becomes us. We're pressing him. Tell us what's going on. And finally he does. He says, look, I know of some secret thing I got to do in this underground fighting arena, essentially, where I know a secret passage. You got to come help me and get in. And he's like, oh, what? Bum fighting? So this is the first curveball. We're like, who is this guy? bum fighting? Is he known as some fighter? Again, tying into they're setting up like it's some kind of awesome revenge movie.
Yeah, like in that point, I literally just assumed that he was a fighter,
Yeah.
and then he like got tired of fighting and moved to the woods.
Yeah, like something happened to him. You know,
Yeah.
like you can tell that there's some kind of trauma that happened in his life that made him leave. You're not sure what it is. You actually have no hints whatsoever because, again, we're at this bum fighting ring, and he essentially gets the shit kicked out of him. There's rich people that go down there and pay money and then beat him up. And he does that, and then that lead that fizzled out before is like, okay, yeah, you owed me when you left, and I guess fine, you paid up. I'll help you. And he gives him the next lead. So again, you're just left with so many questions. You're like, what is happening? Who is Robin? And Amir is just as shocked as we are. Everything's shocking. It's brutally violent. He's just pounding his face into the ground. Like the guy who's fighting Robin. And that's when we first see his full name, too, because he writes his name on the board, essentially to advertise that he's back. Robin Feld. And that means something. Everyone's shocked. So, again, we're left wondering, who is he? So, after this brutal beating, Amir takes Robin back to his place. And this is where we kind of start to realize the movie is not what we think it's going to be. Because we essentially have this very, very touching scene in which Amir shares this really personal story about his dad and his mom. Because we learn through everything that's been going on that Amir is in competition with his dad. They're both in the same business.
In the truffle business.
Yes.
Just wanted to point that out because we did mention truffles, but I don't know if like it was clear enough.
Yes, the truffle business. So he tries to make him breakfast. It's terrible. Robin complains about it. But he still shares this story about his dad and his mom. And they go to dinner at this really fancy restaurant by this extremely renowned chef. And they eat the best meal of what he remembers to be his mom and dad's life because they fought all the time. And he says he remembers vividly that when they came home from this meal, they were so happy. All they could do was talk about how great a time they had. And Robin follows this up with one of the most strange first attempts at opening up, in which he shares his feelings about how the world is going to end, to compare that nothing really matters anyways. So those memories, hold on to those, but it's all going to end. But Amir doesn't get it and is just kind of like, what?
No, I don't know why that scene happened. For me, it was more him like, how I felt it was that it's not like he truly believes in that theory about how the world is ending.
Mm-hmm.
Is that he convinced himself, or it's like he gets amused by it, and it's a good enough excuse to say nothing matters. And it's a good enough excuse to move to the woods,
Well, actually, what I think it is more, because you kind of mentioned moving to the woods, I think what it is that because he's been isolated for so long, he only equates everything to nature. Because that's kind of what he does early on, is that everything he talks about is in relation to, type of animal behavior or something nature related. It's only later as the movie progresses that he starts, sharing his feelings and everything. He starts opening up and we learn more about him, that he begins to kind of converse in normal terms, like personal things, not abstract things. And I feel like that scene is supposed to just talk about that he uses nature to abstract how he feels. He feels like the world is ending and nothing matters because he lost everything. He lost absolutely everything. At this point, we still don't know. We're still just confused. We're as confused as Amir is.
But
what
I
was
think
that
that's
supposed to
when
mean?
they reveal that he was a chef.
Yes. And that's essentially what happens right after. So they follow up on the next lead, the one they got from the bum fighting guy. So they're going to this restaurant. This is the person who bought the pig, I guess. And they go to this fancy restaurant. There's a waiter there giving them the spiel, like, oh, here's our beautiful warm summer truffle ale, blah, blah, blah. Like, very just kind of vapidly stating all these things. And they're kind of like not impressed. They start sampling the food. Robin is displeased. He thinks the food is terrible. And it's just like, okay, well, let's get the head chef over. So they get the head chef, and he comes over, and he's like, hey, so, yeah, what's the deal with the food? And he's like, is everything okay? And he's just like, what is this? And then he begins to rattle off the same things, you know, the waiter was saying, very robotically. And he just kind of calls him out on, he's like, really? Like, this? You call this food? And he just keeps trying to, like, take him down. So then Amir says, what, you don't know who he is? He's like, what do you mean? Am I supposed to know? He's like, that's Robin Feld. And he looks absolutely shocked. He's looking at him, and then he recognizes him. He's like, oh my God. And he pulls up a chair. He's like, Robin Feld, oh my God. I don't know if you remember me. And he's like, yeah, I do. You were a fry cook in my restaurant. He kept overcooking the pasta, so he fired him. And he's just kind of stammering, but he's clearly a super fan. He's like, oh my God, well, look at my restaurant. Look how much has changed. Oh my God, it's so interesting. And he just immediately starts to call him out in this very touching scene where he says, why are you doing this? What is this? All this fake shit. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, do you remember what you told me you wanted to do when you left my restaurant? He's like, well, restaurant, I mean, this is what I have. And he's like, no, you wanted to open a bar. Just a classic
Irish pub.
An Irish pub, good old Irish pub. And he's like, well, but it doesn't sell in this area. And he keeps insisting on him. He's like, no, what happened to the bar? What happened to the bar? What is all this? And we start to get to see the first instances of the movie showing us what the themes of this movie really are.
I think that's when I kind of noticed all the power play before. I just didn't put that much emphasis at it. You know, I was kind of like, oh yeah, it's happening. But as soon as that scene happened, and as soon as like literally like Robin psychologically played and
he psychologically diminished a man, which is a classic restaurant tactic.
I don't know about that, but like, yeah, I assume I know you worked on restaurants.
But this is what I mean. If I may, I have so much insight into this. When the moment that this movie reveals that he was a chef, so much starts to make sense. Like everything that happened before, you're like, okay, that all makes sense. Maybe not the bum fighting at this point, but you're like, oh, his behavior, he's, you know, very snotty with the food. Okay. The pig living in the wilderness. Like we didn't really pay attention, but he cooks this really intricate breakfast in the opening scene. And then we start to notice that the movie is broken up into chapters, and each time they introduce a chapter, it's the name of a food.
Yeah.
Then we start to go, oh, that's why things are named after food. And the pieces just start beautifully falling into place. So what I mean in terms of the restaurant perspective, you know, you said he diminishes this guy, but it's like, that's such a classic chef mentality. In the kitchen, it is so combative. And you talk about power dynamics in this movie because this movie uses that insight of what it's like to be in the kitchen, the way they all talk to each other, the way they disrespect each other constantly is so deeply rooted in like restaurant culture. But at the same time, you don't need to know any of that to understand this movie.
Yeah.
It was just like an extra thing for me. I was like, yes, I get these tactics have a little bit more nuance to me, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because those tactics are also used in any other life situation.
Exactly. It doesn't, like, the perspective doesn't excuse them. It just makes you, it reinforces them for you. You just go, oh, of course. Perfect. I understand it. So, yeah, he just kind of keeps confronting him with this. And he says, why are you being like this in front of all these people? These people don't care about you. They don't even like you. You are suffering for these people, and they will never give you anything. And we start to get and finally understand why he must have left. He was burnt out by the restaurant industry. That must have been it. it must have taken something from him. And the thing is, I know this perspective because in restaurants, being the head chef, you work 18 hours. You're there when they open and you're there when they close. Like the really most hardcore dedicated ones, they just never take time off. Their whole life is in that kitchen.
I think him living to the woods, because we haven't talked about the...
No, I'm saying at this point.
At
this is what we think.
Yeah. At this point, maybe. Yeah, I guess at that point, because why he left, although you can make your own assumptions, it's kind of like open-ended, you know?
A little bit, yeah. It seems like it's a culmination of things.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things happened to this poor guy, and he just went to hide in the woods.
And essentially, this is the scene where we finally really get to see what his perspective of people are and the world and this world he left behind.
But like, this is also the scene when I realized he's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was already assuming because like he loved the pig so much.
Yeah.
But I kind of was like, well, he's still an asshole and he's doing all these power plays with people. So who is this guy, right?
But to your point, though, he does break the guy down, but he does it to then try to build him up.
Yes,
why don't you go? Why? Go for the Irish pub.
Exactly.
You know what you need to do? Like I didn't finish, but when he was talking about the whole, like, these people are fake, whatever, he ends it by saying, the only person you have is you. You have to do this for you. This is all fake because you're being fake.
Yeah.
If you're real, you'll be fulfilled. You'll be happy.
Yeah, so you could tell that although maybe his delivery
Yes, his delivery needs work.
and also he didn't do it like that served two purposes. Yes, for like he did break the guy to build him up again, to make him like wake up from these bullshit so he can go and fulfill his dreams. Yes, he did do that.
But you're right. He did do it to endear himself to then learn more about the pig and the supplier.
He actually like broke him so he's now vulnerable and reveals information.
That also is true. Mm-hmm. So it's two things. It's kind of like it's a shady tactic.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope because he still does do the nice thing in the end. You're like, if he was really being sneaky, he didn't even have to do that part, but he does, which is to your point why we get confirmation. We think he's a good guy.
Yeah. So then Robin asks him like, "Where's my pig?" or like, "Who gives you your truffles?"
Yeah.
Like one of those questions, and he's like, I don't know. You don't wanna make this guy angry.
Yeah, whoever you thought you were messing with, you don't want to mess with him.
And then Robin instantly knew it was Amir's dad.
Yes.
And he looked at him. No word was said after that, and you just know it's his dad.
And he's just you can see Amir just like swallowing so hard. He's just like so nervous. He's like, what? And then the next scene is, oh my God, I swear to God, I don't know how he knew. I never told him. And it's just this crazy, breaking of everything. It's just, oh my God, how did you know? Whatever, betrayal, da, da, da. Like the two characters now, whatever trust they'd been building is just completely shattered. And Robin tries to confront him about it. He's like, I swear to God, I didn't know, whatever. And he's just like, give me the address. Where is he? He's like, no, like, you can't. Like, I don't know. Like, I swear to God, he didn't know. And he's just pleading with him. He's like, finally gets it out of him, gets the address, and they part. Nicolas Cage is just, I'm going. And he goes to try and talk to Amir's dad. Meanwhile, during this separation, Robin goes to Amir's dad, and they have this discussion about the pig. And he just comes in, and he just tries to be like, hey, I want my pig. And Amir's dad's just like, fuck you. Like, literally, that's what he says. I'm not giving you the pig. I mean, he tries to be nice at first by saying, look, I'll give you $10,000 to walk away. 20,000, 30,000. He's essentially goading Nicolas Cage. He's like, 3 million? Why the fuck do you care about this stupid pig? But Robin doesn't budge. Of course, he's not taking money. He wants his pig. So he says, get the fuck out of my house. If you come back here, I'm going to chop that pig up into little pieces. So we get the sense of this man's brutality. And as a parting word out the door, our friend Robin says to Amir's dad.
And Robin says, did you become like that after she died? And Amir's dad replies, did you? Because
Yes.
and
We're like,
that's when it
"Ooh."
seems like it's revealed, although it was kind of maybe
hinted at,
hinted
sort
at,
of.
we realized that Robin also lost his wife.
Yep. And that Amir's mom is dead.
Oh, right. We never talked about the fact that Amir said that his mom tried to commit suicide.
No, he said she killed herself.
Yeah.
Is what he said. I didn't want to bring that up because I wanted this to happen at the same time.
Oh.
Because she's not dead.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to Amir talking to his mom through a door in a hospital. She tried to kill herself, but survived.
And
is in a coma. And has been in a coma for 10 years, maybe more.
Who knows? Yeah.
Amir talks about the story as if when he was a kid. So who
Oh,
knows
I
how
see.
long it's been. But you would assume 10 years at
Yeah.
least.
Oh, yeah. And like the dad pointed out that the reason why he stole the pig is because kind of to protect Amir because he doesn't have the balls to be in this business.
That's what he says.
Yeah, but that's not true.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of talk from Amir. He always makes digs at his dad, but he essentially is always talking about how his dad undermines him and doesn't
Yeah.
have any faith in him. Robin tries to ask him about it, like, well, why don't you just work for your dad? And he's like, well, my dad doesn't respect me.
No, his dad is a complete asshole and irredeemable. Like it doesn't matter what else happens in the movie. It doesn't matter what else happens in the movie.
He essentially abandoned his son because
Yeah.
he was grief-stricken over his wife.
And the reason his wife committed suicide was because of him. So go
Yes.
fuck yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is when they start to reveal
Yeah.
all the rest of this
Yeah.
movie, which is how this business has taken so much from these two families.
Okay, so I want to talk about stuff right now.
Yeah.
I
This is essentially where the movie really has all the meat.
I think this is where the movie finally is well structured enough for you.
It's finally opened up.
Yeah, it's finally like what happened next is kind of like not as revealing as until right now.
Yeah.
After this point, it's kind of just like a movie,
Yep.
or there are more like things that get revealed or happen, but it's not plot twists anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward
Yeah.
from this point.
So one thing that I want to point out is that I don't know, I didn't do we did do a little bit of research about truffles, but I didn't imagine how brutal the truffle business it is. I still
Very
haven't done.
cutthroat.
We did see that people actually steal truffle pigs.
Yes.
And they actually steal even truffle dogs and stuff like that. And they do go like for truffle hunting in places that are like from their from places that are like from their competition and stuff. So they're very like sneaky and
Yeah. A lot
sleazy.
of poaching, a lot of
Yeah.
underhanded stuff.
So I didn't do enough research to see if it's at this level. It doesn't seem like it because we know about stuff. We know that the cartel controls the avocado business. We know that
Yes.
the Italian mafia in the United States controlled alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know those things. I haven't heard anything about these people control the truffle business. The truffle business is tainted. So it was kind of weird for me.
The thing is, I don't think it's as big as you're
No.
making it sound. The movie doesn't even make it sound like it's
You
that much
think
bigger.
so? I
It's just
think-
one man.
I guess.
The thing is, what they're just saying is, if he's the guy who gets the best truffles, those are the ones you want at your restaurant, so you want to make him happy. Because what they're equating it to is that the restaurant industry is cutthroat, which it
Oh.
is. So being a supplier for fancy restaurants, if you screw up, that restaurant is not going to buy your truffles anymore. So
How
it's
different are
cutthroat from both
truffles
ways.
from one another. Like, come on.
No, but they're very valuable. They're
I know they're
extremely
valuable,
valuable.
but how come this specific one is better than the other one? When we saw the lady at the beginning, that
Look, you're going into a deep, deep hole you don't want to go into, because then all the wine people and all the coffee people are going to come after you.
I want them to come after me because like come on. Like, I saw that lady at the beginning that helped him with, like, who stole their pig, right? Who told him, who knew exactly who they were. She had so many truffles.
It's not like there's a truffle drought.
Exactly. So calm down, people. Like, why is this dude has so much power over like a truffle? You know, it's like, okay.
The movie doesn't imply any of those things. You're looking way beyond
I
the
think
movie.
I looked more.
You are looking so beyond.
I just found it. Why would he steal a pig? For just to. No, they do imply that because if they don't care that much, if it's just about like finding a truffle, why stealing a pig? That pig found one truffle.
No. You're forgetting that the whole reason that Robin is sought after is because he finds those good truffles with that pig. He is one of the best suppliers in that area. Robin is the whole reason Amir has a business. That's how good he is. So they thought it was the pig. Of course they thought it was the pig.
Yeah, but like that's the thing is like if the truffle business is not that deep and dense, why steal a pig?
Because it can find more truffles. And I want the most truffles because if I sell more, I make more money.
But like, it's so stupid.
You're forgetting about the tenets of capitalism in America.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, if it's not that big, why steal a pig? Just like
to make more money.
Else. Yeah, but why? Like, just buy a pig and train it.
Well, but the thing is, you don't realize. But that's the whole point of the movie. Everything is always. All this for one pig. What? Who cares? To everyone else, it's just an animal. Stealing an animal doesn't matter. That's not a crime. It makes them so much money. And stealing a pig from some weird homeless guy in the woods, like, you know, of course they would steal it. It's so easy to steal it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like for me, it's not easy. Like for me, it's like how can you steal an animal from a person?
Right.
You're the devil. Like how dare you?
And to that point, that's why the movie starts on Robin's side with the pig, because we are supposed to feel that. We are supposed to say, how could you? It doesn't matter that you think it's just an animal. It matters to us. Because it matters to Robin. So we are linked to him. We are united in his struggle to save this animal.
Yeah.
Because we know he's bonded to it. We know it matters to him.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to point out about this scene that I really, really loved, and it was like such a, I don't know if this is the right way to describe, like poetic in my own personal opinion. Maybe that's not how it's supposed to be described. Anyways, the thing is that I love that throughout the whole movie, Robin had the power over people in every scene.
Mm-hmm.
There were like some scenes that it looked like he didn't, but he still got the power from them. Like he was the one.
He wrestles it out of everybody eventually.
Yeah, so he was always like doing all these weird psychological power moves, and which even with the diner lady, she was like, are you gonna order something? Meaning like, if you're not, I'm not giving you the phone. And he's like, no.
And just stares her down.
She's like, okay, whatever, take the phone. Like that's literally means that like it's the same as like, can I use your bathroom? Are you ordering something? That means no, unless you order something. And he still says no. He doesn't like, oh, I'm sorry.
And he just confronts them.
I don't have money. I can't please. No.
Yes, he's blunt and confrontational.
Yeah. It reminds me of my best friend. He'll just say no. And he just gets his way. But anyways, and so throughout the movies, like, that's like a constant. And then with Amir's dad, he loses, kind of.
Immediately. It's like the scene is so quick.
Yeah, he tries to power move him.
Yeah, he kind of tries his moves and he just shuts him down every time.
Like, did you start being like that after she died? Did you?
Yeah,
and I
throws
was
it back
like,
in his face.
Oh my
he always has the last
gosh.
word. Everything that Robin says, he throws back in his face and just kind of scoffs at.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like, ooh, wow, this guy is ruthless.
Yeah, this guy is a disgusting
Yeah.
asshole.
After the scene, with Amir's dad, in which he essentially just says, fuck you, get out of my house, and threatens to kill his pig. So he goes out the door, and he's surprised to see Amir's actually parked there and like waiting outside. And he just kind of like sits down on the steps looking defeated, and Amir joins him. Yeah, so he just says, hey man, it's okay. We'll get you another pig. And he's like, it's not about the pig. And he's like, what do you mean? All this was for the pig. And that's when he reveals, he's like, look at that tree. See that tree? That's where the truffles. I don't need the pig. I find them. Mm-hmm. He's like, what do you? He's just shocked. He's like, what are you doing this for then? I love her. That's all he says. And he looks at him as if to say, isn't it obvious? Look what I've went through. Like getting beat up in a bum fighting ring, just, having to dig up all this old past that he wanted nothing to do with and get back into this world that chewed him up and spit him out. And it's just like, of course he did it for love. And that's the thing that kind of ignites something in Amir, and he's like, well, there must be something we can do then. Like we have to be able to do something. And without saying a word, they kind of both look at each other, and they know that they have a plan. Robin's like, I got a plan. I'm going to write some stuff down, do exactly what I tell you to do, and I think this will work out. And then the movie kind of goes on this poetic little journey of them going around, and Amir is collecting things on this list. And
a lot of micro stories happen.
Yes. Essentially, a bunch of little scenes happen that now inform our character, where it's like Amir goes to get this bottle of wine. And it's this really old bottle of wine hidden in this old cellar of this place. It's like, oh yeah, I remember Robin. I've been holding all this stuff for him this entire time. I was waiting for him to come back. And we start just getting all these little moments that
just reveal more about Robin's life.
Yes. And kind of like we start to see what his impact was. Everyone seems to have loved him. There's a scene where Robin is at this bakery getting his favorite salted baguette. And he's talking to this woman, and it's in this really, really far away wide shot. It's like really kind of interesting that it's like so far away from them. But they're just kind of chit-chatting, and and it's revealed that she was like the sous chef before, and now it's just a bakery. And he's like, well, what happened? She's like, well, I was always better at baking. Like I don't have the same energy you had. I don't have all the things that the customers came to see. I didn't have the flair.
I'm a baker.
I didn't have that flair in the kitchen. And every scene just kind of keeps reinforcing that everyone really appreciates him and everything that he meant to the culinary world. And a lot of people were inspired by him, or talk about stories where it's like, you built me up when I was at my lowest point.
Yeah, I think Robin is the type of person, and I personally know this type of people. I also know famous people that are like that or seem to be like that. Mm-hmm. It seems like he's the type of person that a random person might think he's an asshole, but the closest people in his life, he's like a savior, a saint, yes. And like he must be protected at all costs. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like you can feel from those like interactions that like he was way more than just a chef.
Yeah,
and like
he was like a leader to people, a mentor to people.
Yeah.
He was a father figure to people. He meant a lot to so many people.
Yeah. For a second, I thought that woman was his daughter, but it wasn't. Or nope. I don't know. It seems like she wasn't. So
no. And it's funny when he tries to leave, she hugs him, and he's kind of like, it's this really awkward sort of side hug thing. And then on the way out, he asks for like a couple extra pastries, and then he shares them with Amir in the car, and we're like, he's finally fully opening up again. He's being generous. He's being kind. And it's like our character's finally coming to the end of his emotional journey. He's building up to something. So it's revealed that essentially what's happening is that they're preparing a meal. Like, it's hilarious. Again, at the end of our super gritty opening revenge movie, it ends with our villain, quote unquote, and our hero sharing a meal together and trying to talk over dinner.
Yes.
And it's like, what a great idea. Like, Robin's like, I'm just going to cook him a good meal. Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, but I found it really amazing because in the scene, Robin is teaching Amir how to cook.
Yes, when they're preparing the meal, Robin and Amir are
together.
cooking together.
And I kind of saw it again to reinforce the idea of how good Robin is.
Mm-hmm.
How even for like that moment, he was like a good father figure to Amir.
Extremely, yeah.
So like that's just reinforce the character and the idea of who Robin was. Although
Mm-hmm.
they never revealed too much,
No.
but somehow they paint such a clear picture.
Yeah, exactly, of who
Mm-hmm.
he was. Exactly. It's like, it's hard to really emphasize how well this movie does that, because it's like, as we say it and it happens, like, you need to see these performances. There's just so much warmth between these characters. And again, we talk about Nicolas Cage's performance as being so exemplary, and this is why he embodies the warmth of this character. He has such this hard, cold exterior when we first meet him, but when he reveals all those like soft and gentle sides, he goes all in. He's smiling, he's listening to music, he's having a good time. It's like we're actually seeing this character look like he's happy. So he just lets himself be vulnerable. And when they get to the meal, it's like all that has kind of been building up. He's becoming vulnerable again. And they sit down. It's Amir and Amir's dad and Robin all sit together at this meal. There's a bottle of wine, and Robin is sure to mention, "Oh, would you like some wine? Your son picked it. You know, this is thanks to him." You know, to try to give a little bit of props towards the son, because as you've established, now he's trying to build up his friends.
Mm-hmm.
Robin is a change. He's opened up again. He wants to build the people up around him. And the dad drinks the wine. "Oh, yes, very good, Amir. Yes, thank you." And they look at the meal, and the meal is so tense. Amir is just sitting there. Like, he looks like he's about to crack and like start crying at any moment. Like, he just looks so fragile. Robin's just sitting there very intensely like, "Are we going to eat or what?" And just starts eating. And we look at Amir's dad, who's, again, still very skeptical. He's like, "Why the hell are you in my house? This is weird." And just tries to still be his really tough, like, "I'm not going to budge." Ugh. Goes to take his first bite. The moment it touches his lips, he starts chewing. He just starts breaking down crying.
Yeah.
And gets up and leaves. And that essentially reveals to us that Robin's plan was to cook the meal that Amir told them about. Amir, his favorite memory of his parents was when they went out and had that incredible meal. They were so happy. Turns out that was at Robin's restaurant. Robin is the one who cooked it for them. And he tells them, "I remember every single dish I've ever made. I knew. I knew exactly what dish I needed to make. I've never forgotten a customer." So this extremely intense scene occurs, and Robin follows them into his study. He runs to his study to escape. He takes a huge swig of scotch, Amir's dad, and he's become emotionally disturbed by what he has experienced. And so he tries again. Robin pleads to him again. "I just want my pig. I just want my pig." Amir trails behind and comes in after and is kind of in the background trying to see what happens. And ultimately, what then gets revealed is that Amir's dad says, "There was nothing I could do. When they got me the pig, it was pretty much already dead. So they dealt with it." And then it's like there is no time for those words to even leave his mouth before Robin collapses to the ground and just starts crying hysterically. Like, absolutely hysterically. And even as I'm saying this, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because it is such an incredibly difficult thing to watch. But the movie passes this moment pretty quickly afterwards, and Amir is just with him trying to, I guess, comfort him. He's like, "What do we
It wasn't quick.
do?"
It lasted like 2 hours.
It feels like it lasts an eternity.
Yeah.
Amir's trying to comfort him, like, where can I take you somewhere? Like, is there anything I can do for you? And he's just like, no, I think I'm just gonna walk home. And Amir's like, are you sure? Like, I would love to drive you. Like, anything, please let me help. And he's like, no, I'm okay. Starts walking down the road. And
No,
we go
but
to
he does say, see you on Thursday.
Right, because he doesn't need the pig. He can just get the truffles himself. So he tries to reassure him that everything's fine. And Amir kind of gets back into his car and just kind of slumps back and starts crying at the whole affair, at the whole thing. He's become so emotionally vulnerable around this man. Like, we didn't mention, but the scene in which he goes and talks to his mom, and she's in this coma and everything like that. That scene is delivered so whisper quiet because he's trying to talk through the door at her that, like, you can barely hear it. It's like, again, this movie's ability to kind of move in on people in these extremely vulnerable moments, and it just knows how to capture these things as if they're real and knows how to represent them in such, I guess, a satisfying way. It feels real. And all these intimate moments have just kind of happened and have left us. And Robin gets home, and it's just this extremely long, wide, sweeping shot from inside of his house. It's extremely slow. And you see through his window, he's in the distance walking closer to his cabin. And it just keeps going through his house. And you see all of the things in his house that now make sense because we've seen his life. We see all the pots and pans. We notice all the spices. We start noticing the pictures. We just notice what all the details mean now. And it's taking its time to show us again. And he comes into the house. He just sits down on the bed and looks at the empty spot where his pig was. He was given a tape earlier by Amir that he couldn't listen to, like right in the opening. It doesn't make sense to us.
Why did he give him that tape? Where did Amir got that tape? Who sent
He just
that
said,
tape?
yeah, someone sent it to him in the mail.
Oh, I guess he found it in his mail, or he gets mail
For him on his
sent.
behalf.
Yeah.
Point is, now we actually get to listen to that tape. And it is his dead wife singing him his birthday song. And he just kind of sits there and he just kind of looks up into the sky and it just looks like he's about to start crying again. And the movie ends. And that's what the movie leaves us with.
Yeah.
It's just like complete emotional devastation.
Yeah.
Like, it just, like, even though it's like that whole last, I don't know, 20 minutes, like nonstop, like emotionally devastating things being revealed to you, the ending still feels a little bit hopeful. The song is a very cheerful sounding song. And the fact that he even was willing to listen to it after he was so horribly wounded means our character still has grown.
Yeah.
Even though it was so hard.
Yeah, I had a mental breakdown.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't easy for either of us. You took it especially hard, but it was very difficult for me as well.
Yeah, so for me, that scene represented so many things. They were dumped on me all at once. So, it just broke me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah, you were like hysterical.
I was hysterical. Like, we had to leave the house
Yeah.
for me to calm down. And I think it took around 5 hours for me to finally just actually calm down, because I just kept crying every time I will remember that scene.
Yeah.
I'll just start crying again, and like, it was just so hard because if I can number the things that I kind of can remember that scene meant to me, because it was so many, right? So it's like, if I stopped crying for one thing, I started crying for the other ones. Like, so, I guess the biggest one was that my mom has been in and out of hospitals throughout my whole life. And there have been many times that it looked like she wouldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And although it seemed like that, I always kept my hope up. And I never imagined she wasn't alive. And that's one thing that Robin also says later to
Mm-hmm.
Amir. Like, I just didn't imagine she wasn't alive. Like,
Yeah.
that wasn't an option in my head, right? So,
Yeah, because the movie essentially tells you she's been dead before he even left.
yeah.
So
Like,
she was dead.
the
The pig
whole
was dead the
time.
whole time.
And you never want to give up on the idea of someone not dying. Like, how can you just accept it? You can't.
Mm-hmm.
I have never accepted it. But when I was on those situations in which doctors have told me, like, well, maybe he wasn't a doctor, he was a nurse that told me, like, your mom is gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just prepare for it. I didn't want to believe it. I was still hopeful, but deep down, my biggest fear was to actually thinking she's gonna make it and she doesn't. You know, that was like the biggest fear, like kind of like that.
Having your hope taken away from you.
Yeah, like kind of like that low-key plot twist in my head. But at the same time, it's not a plot twist because I am imagining it. I am imagining exactly how painful would it be.
Mm-hmm.
So the week before we watched the movie,
Mm-hmm.
my mom was in the hospital again.
Yeah.
And this time was like really scary as well. And thank God everything ended up being okay and she's getting better. But I was really not in the emotional position to watch this movie because the reaction Robin has is like the exact reaction I imagine I would have.
Well, I actually, to that point, will say that I also recognize that reaction because it's the same reaction that I had when they told me my brother was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because my brother died when I was 16, and I had the exact same reaction that he did. Just the exact, like, that utter despair that you've just lost all hope and you crumple to the ground. And the thing is, the movie that loses all sound, he can't even hear what's happening anymore. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
You just fall into a pile in the ground and you can't even think or hear or see.
Mm-hmm.
That reaction in this movie is real.
It is because I then read an article with Nicolas Cage saying to the director that he has a Maine Coon.
Yeah.
And that he told the director, like, I'm not gonna act this.
Yeah, exactly.
I have imagined my cat dying many times. I'm just gonna do that. So it's so, like, I don't know, even amazing to see that. Like, I know I'm not the only one. It's just nice to see when other people have the same reaction, but it's like just so nice to see that, like, Nicolas Cage will react like that.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's fearless.
Yeah.
He was willing to do that, even though, like, you maybe say that to somebody, it sounds silly. It's like, no, this is real. I did that.
No, yeah.
I
Like,
committed to that.
no, yeah.
That is a reality for a lot of people.
It is.
And he didn't shy away from that by being like, oh, well, that's kind of embarrassing. Like, no. Because it's not about that it's an animal. It's that it's family. It represents someone you love.
Yeah, so
It is someone you love.
exactly. So it was that most of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just my biggest fear is just getting those news because I have been so close to have them many times. And I just like that was my biggest fear, like just painted in a movie, you know? It's
Pretty much.
And then as soon as my brain stopped relating that to my mom's situation, it went back to my pets. Like the first thing I said when the movie started and showed the pig,
Yeah.
I saw she looks like Yappy,
Yeah.
which is one of our guinea pigs.
Yes.
And I have imagined them dying many times, and I cry every time
Yes.
because I cannot imagine my pets die. And it's devastating. It's the
Yeah.
same reaction. And when they're gonna die, I'm not gonna be prepared, and I'm gonna like just throw myself to the floor as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember when my first dog died. Holy shit. Traumatizing.
Same. The first, like, how I found out about my cat, she was in the hospital. They gave us hope about her getting better. She was already sick for a while. And the next day I was supposed to woke up for something to see my friend at school. I was supposed to wake up really early. And the phone rings, and I assume it was my friend calling me at 6 a.m. to wake me up, although my alarm actually went off, so I was up already. And I pick up. I was the only one awake at home. And they're like, hey, it's us calling from the bed. Unfortunately, your cat didn't make it, and he passed away last night. And I was 12.
Yeah.
It wasn't my dad telling me, okay, sweetie, you have to be strong, but unfortunately your cat... No, like literally I received
Yes,
the
you
fucking...
answered the phone being like, hey, sorry, your cat is dead.
Yeah, I was fucking 12. I wasn't ready for any of that. The emotional responsibility to even like give that news to my fucking parents and my sister. And we were all devastated. Like, my mom hated that cat. She cried more than any of us. Like, she expresses love, like bullying her pets, you know, and like it was so devastating. So I had to relieve that. I had to relieve what I constantly imagine, which is the death of my pets, which is devastating. I had to confront my biggest fear that I have never confronted, and I was just like putting it inside forever, about being hopeful about a person making it and they don't, you know? Because that's like, I don't know, it's just my biggest fear. Like mom related or friend related, it doesn't matter. It's just like that specific example of hope, and then just everything crumbles. Yeah, I think it was only just that cocktail of emotions, and it broke me. Like, it just did. Yeah.
I mean, needless to say, I want everyone to see this movie. It deserves all the recognition it has gotten, and Nicolas Cage deserves a fucking Oscar for this. Yeah. Like, absolutely.
Fuck Leo, Nicolas Cage.
Not fuck Leo.
No, he's good. No, but yeah, like, and even after, like, I talked with my sister that night, and she was also like, when I told her it was Nicolas Cage, I was so happy to hear that she was like, oh yeah, he's such a great actor. Because she was older than me, so she actually watched some of his good movies from back
from
then.
Before National Treasure.
So she actually, National Treasure is an amazing movie, so shut up. I'm going to rewatch it soon just so I can see if I'm actually right, or if it was just my children brain enjoying. But yeah, so I am happy that it wasn't just like, oh, he's a joke actor. Why would it be? Because I had a couple of friends who reacted like that.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
That was what I was trying to explain to you. You're like, what? I never thought he was always a good actor. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who think he's a fucking loser.
For example, I told my friend, like, oh yeah, so I was just like texting her, so I hit enter but didn't finish the message. So I'm like, yeah, man, I saw a movie yesterday. It's called Pig, and it has Nicolas Cage. And she just laughed, like, ah. And I'm like, yeah. And then I was like, and then I had a mental breakdown and couldn't stop crying for 5 hours. And she's like, what?
In a Nicolas Cage movie? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. And then another friend of mine, he's like, a Nicolas Cage movie that is good, and I'm like, yeah, shut up. Like, that's the thing. I think I am privileged that I never got to see his bad movies because I don't really remember Ghost Rider that much.
Yeah.
I only remember the amazing National Treasure movie. And that's it.
Right. So your continuity of Nicolas Cage is that, wow, every movie he chooses is so good.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, like, as I told you in the beginning, is that someone fed me the ideas he's a good actor.
Because he was.
Yeah, and then I didn't watch the bad movies, so I just...
Yeah, yes, as I'm saying, your continuity was he never stopped being good.
Yeah, because he's a good actor, and now I watch another movie, he's a great actor even.
Yep.
So there you go. And one thing I want to pat myself in the back for is that I'm good at reading people, and I guess that also makes me good at knowing who is a good actor.
Right.
For some reason, I always guess right. Even from last week's episode when we were talking about Annette, and I think I mentioned that how I knew Simon Howard Wolowitz from The Big One Theory was a great actor, and I always knew it. And the same goes with Nicolas Cage. I kind of feel like I just knew it, and that kind of like I remember myself watching movies when I was young, and I also could tell. Like I remember watching bad movies, and I'm like, eek, they don't know how to act, you know?
Well, how fortunate for you that you have finally brought your talents back to the world of film.
I know. I'm the expert now.
Yes, now you have become the master.
I am the master. And I just want to say that Amir, I just fell in love with his acting.
Yeah, well, yeah. I knew about him from Hereditary, which is another great movie. But I immediately recognized him. I was like, who is that? Who is that guy? I was like, oh my God, it's the guy from Hereditary. That guy's so good. And then to that point, incredible in this movie.
Amazing.
So incredible.
It's just, I think people sometimes don't understand how hard it is to not overact. You know?
No, well, that's exactly right. Like here's a great thing we can discuss: the transition from stage to film. This is like a common problem, and even something that I have witnessed in projects that I have directed or projects that I have worked on is that whenever you have a stage actor and it's their first time or among their first couple of times, it's really hard for them to understand that you don't need to project and be loud, because on stage you want your voice to carry. It's all about making sure the people in the back can hear you, right? In film, no, it's about talking as if no one's around, talking as if the person in front of you barely needs to be able to hear just enough of what you're saying. Kind of like in a normal conversation. We don't try to talk really loud. We just talk at a level that's natural. So theater people always really struggle with that. Is, pulling it back, not overacting. The best actors in the world, obviously, they can do anything. It's not a big deal, but that's a common problem, is the overacting, because film is so subtle. There's so much nuance. The granularity of everything and how close you can get makes it so that, you cocking your eyebrow, a little too over dramatically can ruin a scene if it's not, set properly.
Mm-hmm. So I think for new actors or bad actors, it's easier to act like unhinged characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like jerky actors. Like, is when they can exaggerate expressions where they do it best.
Yeah, when they get given free rein to be, well, this guy's crazy. You could do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, then it will work.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everyone who has a like unhinged role, they're bad actors. No, I'm saying that if you're starting or you still haven't like perfected your acting, maybe more dramatic or more roles that you actually have to act and do expressions and be loud and be like, I don't know.
Yeah, more campy roles,
hyper,
like
you know?
in like a superhero movie where it's like more heightened fantasy realism.
Oh my God, something's happening. We have to do something.
Yeah, the drama and the tension is like, it's Hollywood. It's like that Hollywood artificial kind of drama.
Yeah, because
you're right. That stuff is easier to pull off.
Yes, it's way easier because for these roles, I think the actor who played Amir, you could feel he put himself in this role.
Yes.
Like, you could tell that he was like, I'm not gonna be like, hey, dude, what's up? Blah, blah. No, he's like, how would a guy who has a shitty father, who has a mother, who tried to commit suicide, and they're all in a shady business, and he's just trying to, like,
make his way.
Yeah, make his way, and low key, without, like, admitting to himself, he's trying to make his dad proud.
Yeah.
Like, how would that specific person will act, and he pulls it off?
Exactly. You're right. He thought of the actual scenario that the character would be in and what they might actually be like, instead of, well, it was written like this. I gotta say, I'm a bro guy or whatever. You're right. He put in the work to figure out who this person was.
I don't even know. Like, I don't know how actors think, and I could imagine that every actor,
they're all different.
They're all different.
There's so many different schools of thought.
Yeah, it could be that he's just so great. He just made a great performance. It could be that he actually put himself in all these scenarios, and that's why he pulled it off. No idea. He's just
doesn't
great.
even really matter.
Doesn't matter. He's just great.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what technique he uses. He's just amazing.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
And with that, I feel like we've come to a really, really, really delicate conclusion to this very emotionally charged episode. I thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the episode, and give us a follow on Instagram if you want to, get updates and fun things like that.
And on Spotify.
And wherever podcasts are found. Put our voices in your head.
Yes.
Okay, let's go eat dinner.